Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to fourth lecture, which is for grade ninth. The topic for today's lecture is the name tree. The book that we're going to read is Secondary Stage Book 1 for class ninth, and I am your teacher, Miss Aksa. See, the topic is the name tree, which is a poem. And this is the first time that you're reading poetry. The method of reading a poetry and understanding poetry is different from that of reading a prose. This is your first time. I want to, make you people understand what you're supposed to do with the poetry, and then we will read the poem and figure out what we're supposed to do with it. So let's start. To understand poetry, you have to consider it as an art form. Poetry has a unique style and form compared to other types of writing. So you should know that this is different. It has its own uniqueness to it, and there is a different way of understanding it. A poetry includes deliberate line breaks, sound patterns, and rhythm, which makes it difficult and different from prose and contributes to how readers understand it. The breaks that you take, the pauses that you take, and the way you read it may end you up in a situation where your meaning that you have taken out is different from somebody else's meaning. So to understand it through poet's point of view, through poet's perspective, you have to know about the poet as well. You have to know about the time that the poet used to live in, the life that he used to live, the kind of a person that he used to be. If you know the poet well, then you'll be able to obviously understand his way of writing. The third point of understanding poetry is that you must consider the literal and figurative meanings in the poem and determine how these two meanings interact and intersect. The poet, usually uses two ways of writing. Either he uses the literal meaning of the vocabulary that he is using, or he uses the figurative meaning of the vocabulary that he uses. The figurative meaning is of the figurative language. And what is a figurative language? I will explain you it in the later slide. And then you have to decipher. Decipher means to decode something and then understand it. Decipher the figurative meaning of the poem to deepen your understanding of the piece of poetry. To understand the poetry, the main and most important thing is to understand the figurative language. But what is the figurative language? You don't know it. Let's know what figurative language is. Figurative language is a combination of these four elements: similes, metaphors, oxymorons, and hyperbole. What is a simile? A simile is a type of figurative language which is used to compare one thing against another. A simile compares the likeness of two things and often features the words like and as. And examples are as strong as an ox, as brave as a lion. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is a phrase describing something as something it is not in reality, comparing two completely different things with one thing to describe something. It is used to compare two things symbolically. A metaphor literally describes something as something it is not. Like love is a battlefield. What is a battlefield? A battlefield is a place where two enemies are fighting with each other. And enemies, they have animosity, they have hatred against each other, and love is something different. But love is being compared with a battlefield. This is a metaphor. We have oxymorons. What are oxymorons? An oxymoron is a term which features two words which appear to contradict each other, which have two opposite meanings, complete opposite meanings, but when they are put together, they explain the situation really nice, really well. Like, that woman is pretty ugly. A pretty is something which is beautiful. Ugly is something which has totally different meaning. But when they are put together, they explain the situation. Then we have a hyperbole. A hyperbole is a figure of speech which exaggerates the meaning of a sentence, like it really exaggerates something. The examples of metaphor is the sun is a gleaming pearl. Pearl is a small thing. A sun is a huge thing. A sun cannot be a gleaming pearl, but it is being compared to a gleaming pearl. And it actually describes it really well. My baby brother is cute little teddy bear. A teddy bear is something lifeless, something really different. A brother is something really different. But to show his cuteness, this thing is, used. My sister's memory is a camera that remembers everything we have. A memory is something different. A camera is a totally, a different thing. But they are compared to show that the memory is really well, a brilliant memory. And this is how it's done. These are metaphors. Car seat is compared to fluffy cloud to show it's very comfortable. Custard is happiness in a ball. Happiness in a ball is something different. A custard is a food, happiness in a ball, but they are, compared together to show what the person wants to say. The person wants to say that when you have custard, you become really happy, and the choice of words is different. This is figurative language, and particularly this is metaphor. Then we have hyperbole. What is hyperbole? A hyperbole is comparing something, exaggerating something actually. The king's nose was 3 feet long. Obviously, no one can have a nose as long as 6 feet, but it is compared. My dad can lift over 2 tons means my dad can lift really heavy weights, and it is exaggerated. The food was so hot, my ears start were smoking. Again, it's a hyperbole. They have oxymorons, two different words put together to show the situation. Fresh food, to climb down, minor miracle, crash landing, used new car, awfully nice. Awful is something really bad, nice is something really nice. They are put together and it gives that one meaning. Then we have all alone. We have a small crowd. We have act naturally. We have random patterns. We have daydreams. Doing nothing. To do is an action. Doing nothing means he's doing nothing, is doing nothing, he's doing something, but he's doing nothing. Two different words, but it explains the situation really well. And that is it. Now we have you know the step one of reading a poem. The step one towards understanding poetry is to read the poem out loud. You have to read it several times to understand it. You have to read it loud, and you have to read it line by line, word by word, and you have to notice the rhymes, the language, the patterns, the mood, and you have to try to understand what the poet wants to say when you're reading it. The second step is that you have to make sure you read the poem full. You have to completely read it from the very beginning till the very end to fully understand it. You have to read the title as well as the name of the author, and you have to do a little research on the author as well. You have to read the poem as written to form whole piece. Uh, you know, you have to understand that this poem was written to form one piece, and you have to read it completely, read it thoroughly to understand what the poet wants to say. The third step is to have to mark notes on the poem as you read it. You have to underline, you know, the different difficult words that you don't understand. You have to put a question mark against the line that you don't understand, that is something that you need to understand, that is difficult for you, that is unique for you. You have to keep making notes in the margins if you want to, or in the notebook, extra notebook that you keep with you. You may also write a note about the sound of certain lines, or draw arrows connecting certain lines to each other. You have to, try to understand what's going on in the poem. Fourth step is determining the all subject and context of the poem. You have to consider the title of the poem. You have to read the title to understand what the poem must be about. What is the main subject of the poem? Identify the main subject of the poem. Once you have read the poem several times, try to identify the main subject of the poem. The question that you should ask yourself at that time is, what or who is the poem about? That is the subject of the poem. Then you have to determine the key situation in the poem. You have to ask yourself several questions. What those questions are: you have to ask what appears to be going on in the poem, what is talking, who is talking, and to whom. You have to ask, where is the poem taking place, why is the poem being told, does the poem have a turning point, where is the tone, where is the focus or rhyme scheme changes. The step 5 is that you do some background research on the poet. To get further context on the poem, you should also gather information about the author of the poem or the poet. In you're lucky that in this case, in the case of this book, a little research has already been made about the poet, and a little introduction has already been given about the poet. Unless the poet is anonymous, a good, information has already been provided, and that information is in the beginning of the poem, every poem. And it is important, you have to learn it by heart, learn all the important dates provided by heart. You have to learn all the places, important events, important names of important things given. Everything should be by heart. Okay, read the introduction given in the book. You have to, you know you may also look up the poet online. You can then use this context to help you determine the themes of the poem, the kind of life that the poet had been living, the kind of environment that he was surrounded with, the kind of education that he had. Everything, it contributes to your understanding of the poet. And once you understand the poet, his feeling, his tone, his life, it will be easier for you to understand the poems that he has written. Read up on biographical information about the poet, such as where they are from, the time period they were writing within, and their other poems or publications. You should also read general thoughts on the poet's writing concerns and common themes that arise in their other poems. The sixth step is to look up the meaning of words you do not understand. You should focus on analyzing the poem on a deeper level by looking at the word choice in the poem. There may be words you understand and words that are unfamiliar to you, as well as words that have multiple meanings. Look up any words that you do not recognize using a good dictionary. Consider how the meaning of the word fits within the rest of the poem. There are certain meanings to one word, and you have to figure out which word suits the best. Seventh step is to pay attention to the poem's note, to poem's tone, and to the poet's tone and poet's notes. The tone in the poem is based on how the speaker sounds or appears to view their subject, which depends on how they feel about their subject. The speaker's tone could be happy, sad, angry, critical, or distant. It may be even depressing, it may be delightful. It will show when you read the poem. You'll know what he wants to do. Either he wants to convey a message, or he is happy, he just wants other people to know that he is happy through his poem, or he finds something attractive and he wants everyone to see that thing through his perspective. Things like that, how you have to critically analyze what poet is up to. Eighth is to decipher the figurative meaning of the poem. You have to find out all the metaphors, similes, and but you people are young, you people are, this is the first time you're doing this, so I would just want you to underline the words where figurative language is used. You don't have to further categorize the figurative language into simile or metaphor or stuff like that, but just underline where you find out figurative language being used. You have to analyze it, you have to do the analysis of the figurative language, considering how and why the poet has used it. And the last step in deciphering the figurative meaning is to try to sum up the figurative meaning of the poem in a few sentences. You have to sum up what the poet wants to say using the figurative meaning in a few sentences. Now we'll move on to the poem The Neem Tree, which has been written by Mrs. Elsa Kasi. Mrs. show that it has been written by a poetess. The Neem Tree, Mrs. Elsa Kazi. This is the small introduction to the poetess given in the book. This poem was written by Mrs. Elsa Kazi. The German wife, Mrs. Elsa Kazi, was a German lady. She was wife of Alama II Kazi. And who was Alama II Kazi? He was late Vice Chancellor of the University of Sindh. She was born at Weimar in Germany. She met Alama II Kazi in 1907 in London, and in 1907 was married to him. They came to Sindh in 1911, where she spent the rest of her life visiting Europe now and again. Now and again is an idiom. You should know its meaning. You should know how you are going to use it, how you're supposed to use it in your own sentence. She wrote poems in German and English and also helped her husband in writing his book, the book that Alama II Kazi was writing. What was the title of the book that he was writing? Brown Girl in Search of God. And what was Mrs. Elsa's contribution in writing this book? She helped her husband in writing the book. Okay. And when did she die? She died in Hyderabad on May 28, 1967, and is buried beside her husband at the Sindh University campus, Jamshoro. Everything written in this introduction is important, from the dates to the places, from the titles of the book to the nationality and the idioms. Everything, every little thing written in this introduction is important. You should know it by heart. Okay. So first, let's look up to the meanings of difficult words. Let's see what they mean. Intercepts mean to cross each other, to catch before it reaches further. किसी चीज के बढ़ने से रोकना, किसी और point तक जाने से रोकना is to intercept. Scorching is very hot, shadid गर्म. Spray is tiny drops of water blown by the wind. Woe is sorrow, grief, taklif. Soothing is calm, quite comforting. Fulfillment is completion, carrying out. Loftiest is very noble, glorious, dignified, azim. This is an extra information given about the neem tree and the poem. You should read it yourself. It's easy and you will be able to understand it yourself. Then we have some other words. The other words, difficult words in the poem are to bear. To bear something means bardasht karna, to support something, to carry the weight of, to tolerate something. Thou, thou is from the Old English. It means you, you, but as a subject, singular subject, thou. Charmed is also from Old English. It's no longer in use. It means to delight someone magically, to lighten something magically. Wanderer is a person who travels aimlessly. Thy is also a pronoun, no longer in use, and it means your. Then we have shelter. Shelter is a place giving temporary protection from bad weather or danger. Panahga. Vice is something immoral or wicked behavior. Burai, kharabi. Steadfast is someone dutifully firm. Thee is also from Old English. It's no longer used. It is you, singular, but as objective noun. Thou is you, subject. Thee is you as object. and fate is destiny, kismat. Now let's read the poem twice, and then your task would be to understand it, and tomorrow I'll explain it further. See, there are four stanzas of this poem. First one is from my lovely neem till soothing shade. Second stanza is from how strong you are till unprotected head. Third stanza is from could man be bold till through sacrifice, and the last stanza is from could man be steadfast till my lovely name. Let's read it loud, and you'll I hope that you'll understand it. My lovely name that intersects sun's scorching beam, yet bears the heat all day without the rain's refreshing spray. Thou charm'st the wanderer's woe away with soothing shade. How strong you are, how unafraid, how green thy leaves in spite of all the midday flames that burning fall upon thy unprotected head. Could man be bold as thou and rise above the earth with the sheltering arm to save the suffering ones from harm, from sorrows, poverty, and vice, through sacrifice? Could man be steadfast and like thee face every fate, would it not be fulfillment of life's loftiest dream, my lovely name? You people go through it stanza wise yourself, and we'll meet tomorrow, inshallah. This is it for today's lecture. Tomorrow I'll ask you what the poem is about. I've already uploaded your assignment on Google Classroom. Go and check it and do it according to that. Okay, tomorrow I'll ask you people what you have deciphered, what you have understood, and I'll further explain you the poem. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.